Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Yes, I'm so glad you made it, baby, because some people ain't making it. Beach. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and or good night. I am Monroe Arlise, and welcome to another episode of the Most Important Person Podcast, the M.I.P podcast. Oh yes, baby, listen, this is the safest room to be in. Yes, this is the safest room to be in because simply there's no negativity in here. Oh yes, there ain't nothing in here but some motivation, some inspiration, and some encouragement. Baby, we just trying to grow. Let me just talk about me. I'm just trying to grow. Listen, it's gonna be some fears, some tears, some joy, some pain, all of those things expressed in here. But most importantly, we're gonna do all of those things together. Listen, if this is your first time in the room, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, bring a friend, send it to a friend, baby. Listen, because we're gonna grow in here, okay? Now, keeping up with the theme of October, LGBTQ plus Awareness Month, right? I want to take this time and acknowledge on this special day my sister, my friend, TS Madison. And I want to tell you all how TS Madison saved my life. And what's so crazy, I've never told this story publicly, and I haven't had the opportunity to share it with her. And so, but on her birthday today, I wanted to acknowledge why visibility and representation is so important, because it could save someone's life, and also why and how it saved my life. So I want to go back to the time, and just for a trigger warning, I want to, if you, I will be talking about violence, home invasions, and things like that. And so if you have any trauma surrounding that and aren't ready to hear something in regards to that, then this will be a good time to maybe take a break and go grab you something to eat, or go grab you a snack or something, right? So it was 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the year was 2016. And I was living in an apartment in Maryland, and a friend of mine at the time, he had been going through some things and needed a place to stay. He was a cisgender heterosexual male, and he wanted to rent out the other room of my apartment, and I agreed to it. And while he was staying with me, he had started having his friends come over, other cisgender heterosexual men, and just like bringing a lot of people in and out of the house. And I'm not here to tell his story and the things that he was involved with, but what I am going to do is tell my story. And around that time, TS Madison had like took the nation by storm. She was doing all these interviews and all of these different platforms, and I am always been a huge fan of Madison, right? And I watched everything that she did, and she had did an interview with a YouTube vlogger at that time who actually transitioned, and she was telling the story about how she was doing sex work and she was robbed at gunpoint, raped, and the person had the gun to her head. And she was talking about how she had started praying out loud, and after praying and while praying, the person left her alone. And that just stuck in the back of my head. And I wanted to give you that backstory because I wanted you to know that that stuck in the back of my head, but I want you to put it on the shelf. Now, going back to the person staying in my house. And so after months of him staying with me, living with me, there was just a lot of people in and out of the house that I didn't like. And I don't like a lot of company. Anybody that knows me will tell you I don't keep no busy house. I don't keep no whole bunch of people in my house. That's just never been my thing. I'm not that girl. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not that girl. And I had a conversation with him and told him that, all these people in and out the house, that's not cool, and then there was people knocking on the door, and I was answering the door, and it would be for him. And I don't do pop-ups. You're not gonna pop up at my house, okay? And child, people was popping up and coming to the door and things like that or whatever, right? So me and him had a conversation, and I was like, you're going to have to start answering the door for your own company. Like, that's just what you're going to have to do. And he was in the room with his girlfriend at the time, and I was in my room, and that night someone had came and knocked on the door. I went to the door and I looked through the peephole. Now, let me get a backstory on the apartment that I was staying in. It was in one of those apartments where ain't no door. You just walk up the steps and come, you going up into the apartment or whatever. And we were on the top floor, which is why I never thought that what I'm about to tell you happened would ever happen. Child, so I went to the door, and when I looked through the peephole, it was somebody at the door that I didn't recognize, and so I knew it wasn't for me. So I went and banged on his door, and I was like, listen, you need to answer the door for your company. Somebody at the door for you, and it's not for me, and I'm not answering the door. And at that time, I think it was like around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So it took him about 5 or 10 minutes to come out of the room. And when he went to the door, nobody was there. And so he came out. He was like, "There ain't nobody at the door." And I was like, "Well, it was somebody at the door. Some dark skinned boy. Like I don't know who it was. It wasn't for me. But you need to get a better timing with your company when they come into the door." Now, the next day comes, and I go to work, and I get off. At that time, it was a weekend. It was like a Sunday. I got off work that Sunday at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I mean 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now this is the same year, this is the same night. I was so excited to get home and get comfortable because this is the same night that Wendy Williams hosted the Soul Train Awards. I'll never forget it because I didn't get a chance to see it, and I was still a huge Wendy Williams fan, and I was so excited to see her host the Soul Train Awards. And I came home, and I was getting myself together, and I was getting ready to watch the Soul Train Awards, and he was on his way out the door, and he was telling me that he was leaving and he was going to go participate in something that he was doing. And I was like, okay, have fun. And he left. Literally, I sat down with my beverage. I had got out the shower, and I sat down with my beverage, and there was a knock at the door. And I got up and I went to the door and I looked through the peephole, and it was the same guy who was at the door the night before. And so it enraged, like I was enraged. Like I can't believe you gonna pop up at, like, you must not be having a communication or a conversation with him because you here and he gone. Like, that's crazy to me. So I opened up the door, and when I opened up the door, I had started start reading him. He was like, "Is so and so here?" And I was like, "No, he not. And you need to get a better communication with him." And before I could finish my read, a guy came from around the corner with a ski mask on and a gun and told me to get on the floor and pushed me into the apartment. And at that time, my apartment layout was so different. So it wasn't like you just opened the door and there was an open floor plan of my apartment. My floor plan was different. If I am standing in front of the door and I open the door swings open this way and it blocks everything else. So you would have to come in, close the door in order for you to access the living room, dining room, the living room and the bedroom. So on this side is just the dining room and the kitchen, but it's no outlet into the rest of the apartment. And because the hallway was so small, you would have to close the door in order to get to the bedrooms. And so when the guy came around the corner with the gun and put me on the floor, the person who was standing in front of the door at the peephole then came in, closed the door, and ran around. I could hear him running directly to the guy who was staying with me, his room. And my dog was still alive at that time, and he was in my room, and I heard Cardigan bark. He closed my door. He knew that my room was first. I heard him close my door and run into the guy's room. So now I'm on the floor in my dining room with a gun to my back, and the guy is telling me to keep quiet, stay quiet, keep quiet. This is the first time that this has ever happened to me, and I've done some things in my life and been around some places and been around some people where I could have been in a sticky situation like this, but I've never had a gun put to my head or in a life-threatening situation like this. And he's telling me to keep quiet, and my face is in the carpet, and I'm like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "Where is it at? Where is it at?" And I do not know what they're looking for. And I could hear the guy rummaging in his room at the time. And so he was like, so the guy yelled to him and was like, ask her where it's at, ask her where it's at. And I don't know what the it is. And so the guy tells me to get up and don't move too fast and things like that. And I stand up and he tells me to keep my eyes closed, and then he tells me to walk to the bathroom. And I'm like, how am I going to walk to the bathroom with my eyes closed? Now, at this point in time, I can tell you that I was upset. I was like nervous and a little scared, but nothing made me more, nothing, I didn't feel like my life was in danger, even with the gun to my back, honestly, because I couldn't see it until he told me to walk to the bathroom and keep my eyes closed. And I said to him, how I'm going to do that with my eyes closed with like an attitude. And I felt the barrel of the gun on the back of my head. And he said, figure it out. And that is when I knew that my life could be over at any moment. And as I am walking to the bathroom, like feeling my way to the bathroom, I'm like, God, this cannot be the end for me. This cannot be the end for me. And I walked to the bathroom and I could hear the guy in his room rummaging through his things, and his room was connected to the bathroom. And so when I walk into his wall was connected to the bathroom. And so when I walked into the bathroom, I could hear the person in his closet like looking for stuff or like rummaging through his things. And so when I walked into the bathroom, the gentleman then told me to get in the tub. And at that moment, I said, my mind told me that he was going to shoot me, and he didn't want the blood to be everywhere. And so when I stepped in the tub, the guy said he's going to count to 10, and if I don't tell him where it was at, he was going to shoot me. And I told him I didn't know what he was looking for, I didn't know what it was, and he started counting. And that is when the flash of Madison on that show saying that when she was in a situation where a gun was to her head, she started praying out loud. And immediately I went to the throne and I started praying for the person who had the gun in their hand, asking God to give them the desires of their heart, for they know not what they do. I started thanking God for being the God of today, yesterday, and tomorrow. I started thanking God for the angels that He's dispersed. And I went in straight to prayer. And the person, of course, was telling me to shut up and be quiet, shut up and be quiet. And I just kept praying and kept praying and kept praying and kept praying. And I started crying and I'm praying and I'm crying and I'm praying and I'm crying. And then when I finally like remembered what was going on, I didn't hear anything. And then, well, no, I heard the door close, the front door close. And when I stopped praying, I got silent and I didn't hear anything. And so I stepped out of the tub and I like went around and peeped in his room. I saw that my door was still closed. I looked into the living room. They had took my cell phone, and I went to the front door and I had locked the front door. And I ended up calling the police. And that is how TS Madison saved my life. I want to talk about why visibility and representation is so important, because when I was growing up, there was no representation of a trans woman in TV and film. There was no representation. I didn't know any trans women at the time that identified as trans. Maybe there was some that was living a stealth life, but I know in that time, before seeing Madison, I didn't. And I was struggling with my identity at that time. I was pretty much what we now know as gender nonconforming at that time, because I was going by both pronouns. I was, in makeup and out of makeup and really trying to find my way. But when I saw Madison, I could see myself in her. And so, Madison, I want to say to you, thank you for saving my life. Sister, I love you. The work that you do is incomparable. Who you are, there's only one you. And I just love you for the private conversations we've had where you've poured into me, for loving on me, for supporting me. Everything that you do, you deserve the world. Everything that you have acquired and keep acquiring, and the ceilings you keep busting through and opening up the doors for the girls. For me, I appreciate you. I honor you. And you should have received your gift by now. And it's just a token of my appreciation, but a small token nonetheless. You deserve the moon and back. And also, I know today is the day that the TS Madison Starter House opened up and your legacy continues to live on and on and on. And I know that this is one of many houses to go. And so I honor you today. I celebrate you and happy birthday. I wish you many, many more. Well, this episode will conclude, I think this should conclude our LGBTQ plus History Awareness Month. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for visibility and representation and the waves that we are making as trans and gender nonconforming people in the entertainment industry, in the film industry, in all professions all around the world. I honor you all. I want you to remember that you are the most important person in your life. You know that if you don't do it, it won't get done. Oh, yes. You are the most important person. Listen, I thank you for watching. I thank you for tuning in. And listen, until we see each other again.